Night Vision. Following clues left by our ancestors, we unbury the past to reveal a knowledge of unfathomable value, putting us just a little closer to our own true birthrights. From the secret history of a possible bloodline of Jesus Christ, the secret history of America's founders, to the secret history of extraterrestrial interaction on our planet, here to bring light to the night. Your host for Night Vision Radio, Renee Barnett.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Night Vision once again. I'm really excited about tonight's show, as I hope that you are. I have a wonderful, wonderful guest, a very, very talented musician and singer named Britton Buchanan. You might remember him from The Voice and other of his music that you've heard. And I got to know Britton just a little bit a few months ago when I worked on a project on the Queen Mary. It was a haunted project for Halloween, and we had Britton come out and try to inspire some of the ghosts with his music, and he did. And he also went on a few ghost hunts. And so we're going to talk about this whole idea that there's something of a paranormal connection with musicians and really artists of all types. And that maybe, creativity in itself might even be supernatural. And whether or not, people are inspired by something supernatural or paranormal, or whether or not they're actually receiving some kind of downloads in that vein. So without further ado, let's welcome our guest, Britton Buchanan. Hey, Britton.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, and you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here. My extensive can collection in the back.
Oh, wow.
I just noticed those myself.
And, I was wondering, we met up on the Queen Mary, and you did some ghost hunting while we were there. And I wonder, has there been anything since then? Have you continued delving into the paranormal at all, or are you just too darn busy?
Well, I had done, a lot of investigations before that, but since then, it's just been, with things. Right after that, we headed into another COVID wave, and so everything shut back down again for us here in LA. And then now things are opening back up. So I've been so busy that I haven't had the chance to do anything. But that was amazing. I mean, the Queen Mary on Halloween night. I love that boat just outside of anything. It could be Tuesday night, but it was Halloween night. So it was a lot of fun.
It was pretty amazing. And so since you said you'd been into paranormal investigation before, how did you initially get interested in the paranormal? What sparked that?
Well, when I was a kid, I loved, Goosebumps and Alvin Schwartz's scary stories to tell in the dark and horror films from an early age. And so I think the first time that I got into ghosts and whatnot when I picked up a book. I can't remember what it was, but it was written for kids about the world's most haunted places. Now I'll never forget just reading about Myrtle's plantation as a 10-year-old kid and all the crazy stuff that happened there and stuff that goes on. And so I knew I always wanted to do something like that. And I had a friend group that was also into just the spookier side of life. And so I think we did our first haunted place would have been Ohio State Reformatory. And I think we just did it just to, for the thrill. I like to get scared. I like to go into like Universal Horror Nights, like those kind of haunted houses with scare.
Uh-oh, are we having an issue, Bill?
Having an issue? Are we? I'm back. Are you back?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that initial interest was let's go in a dark room and get scared together and see if something happens. So I think that was what happened first. That's what got me into it, was trying to get scared with my friends.
Yeah, yeah. And this idea of artists and musicians being sort of a little closer to the veil or something. Do you think that's true? I mean, I used to write some music, and I also, was a journalist. And I always found that my best and easiest writing usually came like somewhere after midnight, usually when I had a severe deadline the next day. And I would just sit down and it would just seem to fall out of me. It would be, I'd just start typing and it would be coming out. And then I would feel like I didn't really write that, that was so effortless that, it was just really odd. Do you know what I mean by that? Does that ever
For sure.
happen
I
to
think
you?
that I think that like there's an intense spirituality in the creative process in general. And I don't know, I don't know what it is, but I've always felt, I've always, I mean, I've called them characters, but I guess that you could also just call them like whatever perspective you're writing from, that you're singing from this perspective, if you're telling a story. And
Right.
so, I've always thought that that was a very spiritual process of not only just writing, but like singing these things from different perspectives. So whether that means, like you're walking alongside the spirit of something, or you're just you whatever you're channeling when you do these things, when you sing from these different perspectives. I don't know if they're characters or if you're walking alongside something else, but it's always felt intensely spiritual to me. I mean, I grew up in a private Christian school, and the spirituality has been around me for forever. And what I believe is a close relationship with God and a close relationship with that side of everything. And so I could just be reading into it because I was inundated with it when I was a kid in Christian school, but I don't think so. And I think that I completely agree. I think that I've had moments in writing where it happens when you're kind of at the end of your rope and you've kind of
Yeah.
given up, and then all of a sudden, bam, there's like a full song or
Yes.
a full piece or whatever. Whatever you're writing, it always comes kind of like when you have done all that you humanly can to get it to a place where you feel good about it, and then there's another push. So I feel very attached to the spirituality of the creative process, for sure.
Well, you mentioned the word channeling, and I mean, I wondered, when people write sometimes, and like I'm talking about myself too. It did feel like, I mean, I wasn't hearing voices or anything like that, but it was almost unconscious. It was almost automatic writing,
Right.
a lot of poetry, a lot of lyrics and things like that. And absolutely the best stuff would come, like I said, it would always be sometime after midnight, and usually when I was utterly exhausted.
Right.
And I thought, now why would that be? Is it because all my boundaries or barriers are down because I'm so exhausted and I'm only then allowing it to come through?
Right.
It always felt like such a strange experience. I always tried to figure it out.
I do think that there's a period of in terms of exhaustion, of like consciousness, where like you're in that mode where you're ready to pack it in for the night, and so you're not fully awake but you're not asleep. That I just think is one of those things where it's a mindset where whether you're perceptible to outside influences or whether you're just subconsciously have just decided like, oh, that's where the idea is. I think that there's something in this space between being awake and being asleep, which is always comes late in the night,
Mm,
where just whatever influences, whether they be spiritual, literary, visual influences, are just more profound to you. And so I agree. I feel like I always write my best songs when my roommate is asleep and I have to be really quiet and I don't know what they
yeah.
sound like until the next morning.
That's funny. But yeah, it's very curious because also, um, by the same token, when you hear about, haunted places and things like that, it always seems like it's, mainly in the middle of the night. They
Mhm.
usually say, around 3 a.m. or something. It's like the witching hour when, if you want to get the good ghosts, you got to be there in the middle of the night. And so I wonder if there's something, that goes on in the night that,
Right.
where the spirits are out dancing or something.
It's something. Ray Charles said the nighttime is the right time. That's
Yeah.
what it. And I've always like, I have friends that are like, oh, we go to bed early, we're up early. I'm like, oh, you're missing a lot.
Yeah.
The best moments are at night. It's like nothing good happens during the day, and it's just I've always, maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's why musicians have some intense relationship with the spiritual side of things, is because we're the ones that are up all night and sleep all day, and everybody else is up all day and sleeps all night. So maybe we're just up at the right times. We're lucky.
Possible. I I'm like you. I mean, I would rather just stay up all night. I
Mhm.
it's there's something about it that kind of feels like you're getting away with something also,
Oh, for sure. I
like
was
I'm
like,
I'm staying up past my bedtime.
that's it. I always had an early bedtime when I was a
Yeah.
kid, and then I moved out, and I was like, all right, well, I'm never sleeping, and the daytime is so inconvenient. There's a glare on the television. That's when you know that you shouldn't be awake, is when you
Yeah.
can't watch TV because there's a glare. That's how
That's
I
so
live my day.
so true. Now, have you run into a lot of other musicians and other artists here, especially in LA, we're full of them, who've had, these paranormal experiences, or, whether or not it's to do with their work or whether or not it's some kind of paranormal encounter? Because
Yeah.
it seems like I keep running into musicians that have had some pretty profound experiences.
My two best friends here, they're like my family. They're life partners, and they both have had some of the most incredible experiences that I have ever heard any two people talk about. And uh, I've been able to mooch off their experiences as well, being in the right place at the right time with them. And they're two of the best singers I have ever met in my entire life, and they are like way into it like me. I think that's what uh, drew us to each other.
Yeah.
Was we both like scary movies, and we both were like, oh, they were like, oh, our shop is haunted. I was like, your shop is not haunted, and they were like, oh no, it's haunted. There, and for sure, like the only instance of like me ever feeling like I've been touched by something physically that wasn't there, and the only instances, on multiple occasions, I've ever seen like something like they work in the back of a toy store. They have their own thing, but they work in the back of a toy store, and seeing things like lift up and fall off shelves, toys, like most profound experiences of like things like balls rolling on their own, doors closing on their own, toys, you know, lifting, getting like actual ground off of a shelf and then falling over. It's just like around them. Maybe it's because if you put three musicians in a room with a ghost, the ghost needs
Exactly.
to show off a little bit.
But isn't there something scary about haunted toys and dolls?
Yeah.
It's because they're supposed to be so benign and, sweet. And, for children, and then, some of them are haunted. But
Yeah, it's terrifying. It's just like in terms of this particular uh, shop. It's a shop in South Pasadena that my friend Kelly, who has this it's a jewelry making parlor in the back of this toy store. It's his own business, but they're connected.
Right.
And they were having a ladies' night out party, and the party had ended. It was about 11:15, 11:30 at night. Everybody was gone except for him, and he was putting some things away in the basement. And as he's walking up the basement stairs, somebody starts knocking on the back door. So he goes to check who it is, and it's the police. And the police were like, "Sir, we have to, we're here to do just check things out because we have had multiple calls about a young girl dancing in the window of the toy store." And I mean, the toy store closes at 6. This was 11:30. The women had been gone for an hour and a half. Kelly was just getting ready to go home.
Oh,
And
my God.
there was enough calls about a young child dancing in the storefront window of this toy store that the police thought it was, they were warranted to come out and check things. And they did, and they found nothing. And a couple of months later, they had a one of those Hollywood medium nights of, the people that, are scribbling on the paper and just kind of in the zone. And then they were talking about something and to somebody else. And then he turned while he was talking and just said, there's a little girl that lives here. Her name is Sally. And then turns back around and just finishes. And so we call her Sally, and she likes to dance, which goes back to the well of music and creativity.
Exactly.
That the spirit of this little girl who's so receptive and kind to us and, has knocked things off the shelf for us 3 musicians is clearly a little girl that likes to dance in the storefront window of this toy store. So I didn't realize the correlation until we just started talking about it, but it's pretty amazing.
Music again. Yeah. Have you ever gone in there at night and tried playing music or anything?
Yeah, they had a baby toy piano, just a baby piano, and I was just playing whatever. I think it was "Don't Pass Me By" the Beatles. And next thing I knew, just a book flew off the shelf. Yeah, like a bookshelf, like this bookshelf, like a book not faced outward, a book with the spine faced outward, so it would have had to have like scooted out of the shelf.
Right.
And so I put the book back and started playing the song again, and then another toy fell off the shelf. And then I finished the song and put the toy back and then left. But that was my experience playing music in the toy store at night, was things, knocking themselves over. And it was pretty remarkable.
Do you remember what the book was?
Mm-mm. No, with the book, their books are just like assorted children's books. So I should have looked to see if it was something about music, because they do have a music section, because a musician owns the toy store as well.
Oh, wow. And there we go.
There's always guitars, and they rehearse in the basement and everything. So Sally gets the opportunity to dance quite a lot, I guess.
Wow. Yeah, it just seems the stories are endless, and probably a lot of them are just like what you've been doing. Is like you kind of just incorporate it, and then until you start talking about it, then you start seeing all these other connections.
Right.
So it's sort of like it just happens, but you don't really recognize it for what it is at the time. But then when you start thinking back on it, it's like, oh my gosh, there it is. Right.
Well, you look at another one of the world's most haunted places is Bobby Mackey's Music World in Kentucky. And that's a nightclub where they play music all of the time. And, I've been there several times and have had profound experiences there each time I've gone. And so I do think that there is like I mean, my favorite artist is Bruce Springsteen. Bruce Springsteen always talks about how spiritual music is and about how, in this life we walk alongside ghosts. He always used the word ghost. I mean, like the lead single from his last record is a song called Ghosts, of just like, how music brings these people that we've lost, these memories that we have associated to songs, these people that we associate with certain pieces of music. It always feels like they've never left when you hear these particular songs. It just takes you back to a moment in time. So I think that just like there is a strong spiritual bond inside of us as humans in this life with music, and that has to, without a doubt, carry on to the next, because it's not materialistic. It's an internal spiritual thing. And we sing songs at church, and we sing songs in bars, and we sing songs in arenas, and we sing songs in wherever,
in the shower.
in the shower. It follows us everywhere. From the most humanistic place like a bar or a club or wherever it is, to the most holy of places like a church or wherever. And so I think that there's just an intense bond inside of us spiritually with music and the act of singing. I mean, it goes back to the Bible, written thousands of years ago. Like, there's a time to dance, there's a time to sing, there's a time to all of these things. And so, like, for all of history, we've had this bond with music, this spiritual bond with music. And so I think that as we learn more about the world around us and worlds around us that we can't see and that we don't live in, that I don't think it's any surprise that we're finding out there's a ton of correlation with creativity, not only in its other forms, but specifically with something like music.
Yeah, and we're talking about the creation of music, but there's definitely, like you said, there's the idea of the listener, of the enjoyer of the music. And like you said, it can, harken back to a memory. It can bring you back in a snap. Every now and then I'll be on the, on the internet or something, on YouTube, and how they're always recommending videos. And every now and then there'll be a crazy old song that wasn't even like my favorite song or anything, but it was very popular, back during a certain period in my life or during a certain situation. And it can just like, bam, transport me back there so fast. And there's nothing else like that. I mean, occasionally, there might be a fragrance or something like that might take you back to another place or time. But there's really nothing like music that does that. And
for sure,
it can evoke, all kinds of emotion. But it certainly has a way of, making time travelers out of us as well.
I completely agree. I can't listen. I was very fortunate. I had a very close relationship with my two great grandmothers. And one of them passed when I was 12 and the other passed when I was 13. And the one that passed when I was 13, I was specifically very close with, because Dad worked an hour away and didn't get off till 4, and Mom worked in town, but she didn't get off till 4:30. So we got out of school at 2:30, and my grandma would pick us up and take us to her house, and we would stay there all summer until Mom and Dad got off work. And my great grandmother lived with her. And so my grandma worked from home. And so we were always with my great grandmother. So I was very close with her. And she passed when I was 13. And she loved Conway Twitty. She loved Conway Twitty. There was no one else in this world, not even her daughter, that she loved more than Conway Twitty. And
I think Conway was from Oklahoma, from my state.
Yeah. Oklahoma. He was an Oklahoma boy. And Hello, Darling was her favorite song ever. And that's a song that I cannot listen to. Yes. I can't listen to it, one, without getting intensely emotional, and
Yeah.
two, without feeling like I'm with my great grandmother. Like,
Yeah.
you feel people, the
Yeah.
presence of people, um, that have associated themselves with a piece of music, and it is like an incredibly associative tool. Paul Simon's Graceland album is one of my favorite things ever, and it was one of two CDs I had in my car when I was in high school, and it was all I would listen to on the way to school and back. And so, I mean, I can't listen to any of those songs without like me being
Going
16
right
again in
back
my
there.
red Mini Cooper, driving to my high school with the windows rolled down. And
And it doesn't matter how old you get, because I see, things. I forgot what it was, what song it was, and I clicked on it, just like, oh my God, that song I haven't heard in 100 years.
right,
But yeah, it took me right back to middle school,
for
and I was
sure.
like 13 or 12 or 13 years old. And it's like, it's amazing how that can happen.
It totally is. And the only other thing, us talking about uh, the paranormal, and that I've always associated that, even though I don't find it uh, terrifying. I actually find it very comforting. But I've always associated it with, horror cinema, because that was my introduction into the paranormal. The only other thing that has ever had that kind of effect on me, such a powerful association with a time of life, is things that scared me.
Hmm.
And movies that scared me. So it's really odd that the two most powerful associators in my life are music and fear, but both of them, like every time I watch Jaws, I remember being 5 and like peeking around the corner at the scene where Richard Dreyfuss has just dived under to check this boat that was just sitting there, and there was a big hole, and he pulls a shark tooth out, and he's looking at the shark tooth,
Ugh.
and this corpse floats into screen, and I just remember peeking around the hallway and that coming on television and just running. Or I can remember watching the Michael Jackson Thriller music video, and like every time the music would stop and in the middle of the video and all the zombies would crawl out of the graves and they would assemble together, I would scroll down on the computer screen until I heard the music kick back in, and then I would scroll back up because I couldn't watch it. And so the only two things that I have that profound of a timeline association with are music and things that have scared me. So maybe that's a correlation for me of why I like the paranormal and why I like music, is they're profound time capsules for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can remember some movies that had a profound effect on me. The big one was The Exorcist.
Linda's one of my closest friends,
Oh,
and that was a movie that I wasn't allowed to watch because it was a devil movie.
well,
And
yeah.
and
Hey, you shouldn't have watched it. It scared me to death.
it scared me to death, but I was good. I was a good boy. I didn't want to do anything to upset my mom. So I listened. I was like, oh, I won't watch it. And then I saw my first R-rated horror film when I was 9. And then about 3 years later, I finally was like, I have to see what this Exorcist thing is all about. So I paid my best friend's mom to buy me The Exorcist on DVD. So I would hide The Exorcist under my bed during the day, and while it was out, I would watch a little bit of it until I thought I was going to fall asleep. Then I would go back under my bed, and for years, until I became friends with Linda at 20, my mom had no idea. My mom didn't find out until 8 years later that I had paid someone else's mom to buy me The Exorcist, and I would
That's
and I
so
would hide it.
hilarious.
So again, that it just takes me back to being 12 and hiding The Exorcist underneath my
Yeah.
bed.
Oh, I tell you, it scared me so bad. When it came out in the theaters, uh, there was a lot of hype about it. And I was living in Tulsa, Oklahoma, still at that time. And I went, and it scared me so bad that I just could not go to sleep. I did not want to go to sleep because I was afraid that I would get possessed. And I know I called all my friends and I told everybody at work, do not go see this movie. It's too much, because it actually could happen. That's
Right,
the scariest
right.
movie I've ever seen. But interesting that you know Linda. I believe I've met Linda. I know I have, and I know she's really good friends with a couple of really good friends of mine. Now, are you involved in her animal stuff, or?
Yeah, I go up and help about once or twice a month. I like to go and walk her dogs because there's so many. I mean, she rescues these dogs from kill shelters,
Yeah.
and she's just out of the decency and kindness of her heart, and she always needs help with people helping to walk these dogs because she can't do it all herself.
Yeah.
And so Linda and I met at a convention, but then we had friends of ours, mutual friends, introduce us, and Linda is a fan of The Voice, and I'm a fan of Linda's. And so Linda and I, when we met as peers, just had a very intense mutual admiration for each other, and we hit it off. And like, I love her. I mean, she's one of the only people that if she calls me at like 1:30 in the morning, I'm just like, yes,
Yeah.
is everything all right? And
Gosh,
I
it's
was
a small world.
It is a small world. Never would I imagine being the 12-year-old kid hiding The Exorcist away from my mom. That, almost 10 years later, Linda, I would be
You'd be
driving
friends
up.
with her.
I'd be driving her birthday to take her vegan Mexican food so we could have a picnic for her birthday.
Oh my gosh.
Never did I ever think that was ever going to happen, but it has, and I'm very blessed to have somebody like Linda in my life, and somebody with just a profound effect on pop culture like that, and American culture, and paranormal culture, is Linda Blair.
Truly. Now, did she ever share with you? Because I know we heard things. I don't know if they were true, but that they had some things happening on the set. That were kind of scary and all that. And also, did that have an effect on her? Because she was young at that time.
Well, I think what really had an effect on Linda was, at the time it was 1973. It wasn't necessarily popular to make movies about the devil. And it really wasn't popular if you were a 12-year-old little girl and possessed by the devil and saying and doing some of those things that she says in that film. And so I think what really had an effect on Linda was the way that she was treated by the press and by society as a 12 and 13-year-old girl. Because she did 3 movies. She did The Exorcist, Sarah Kay, Portrait of a Teenager, abortion, and just some other topics. And so she was kind of labeled at this time as this 14-year-old controversial actress that was in over her head, and they were so mean, and like they analyzed her life in a way that was just completely unfair. And so I think that like that's a tough thing to deal with as a young kid. And so I think more so than anything that happened on the set, the thing that really impacted life was the way that she got treated just from talking to her and other stories, that there was crazy things that happened there all the time. I mean, I think 2 people died during production, multiple people were injured.
That's right. Yeah.
The scene in which they're doing a test in the hospital. I don't remember exactly which scene this is. It may be the one which is the most terrifying scene in the movie to me, where she gets like blood drawn out of her neck. And because that looks uncomfortable. And that's why it scares me. But there's a medical lab technician in there that they hired. He has like 2 lines. And 10 years later, he like murdered 3 people. That's the craziest to me is he's arrested and charged as a serial murderer. And he was an actor in this 12-year-old.
Oh my goodness.
There we are. Am I back now?
Yeah, you're back.
Linda was left with am I a little out of my be in the middle of Los Angeles, there's some awful internet here, and it's all charter spectrum.
That's crazy.
But Linda was left with permanent back damages because of a back brace gone wrong in a stunt scene in that movie. And so was Ellen Burstyn, was left with permanent back damages from a stunt gone wrong. And so everything that could have gone wrong went wrong on that movie. Yes, she from stories from her and just stories that from other people I know that worked on that movie or close with people that worked on that movie, there was some crazy things happening.
Yeah. You hear that on certain sets of certain shows, especially if they do have something to do with, the paranormal or something of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But, you hear stories. I remember one of the biggest stories I've heard about, musicians' experience with the paranormal was John Lennon's UFO sighting on top of the Dakota where he was living. And I think he was later killed in front of the Dakota, wasn't it?
Yes,
yeah.
It was.
Anyway, but he at this time he was living there, and he was in a relationship with a young woman by the name of May Pang. He and Yoko Ono had a split up of some kind. They were sort of taking some time apart, and he was going to see someone else. And it's my understanding that Yoko kind of manipulated that relationship between John and May because they knew her already. She was like their assistant. And I think she just wanted to make sure of who he was going to be hanging around. I'm not sure. It was odd at the time, and I never figured it out. Anyhow, he was with May Pang. They were on top of the building, and they apparently, had some kind of a UFO sighting, and John wrote about it later. He actually drew pictures of it later. He noted it in the cover sleeve of one of his albums. On this date, I saw a UFO, and it was quite a deal. And it was really interesting. And I was able to work on a segment about that with May Pang back in the mid-90s when I was working on a show called Strange Universe. We did a segment on John Lennon's UFO, and we interviewed May Pang. And actually, I had contacted her just recently to see if she'd like to come on. And she's in the middle of something right now, but she said definitely check back at another time. So, but also I had recently come across an article. I believe it was in a British newspaper, and it was an interview with Uri Geller. I don't know if you know who that is, Britton.
I do know the name, but you'll have to refresh my memory. He was
really popular back in the 70s, 80s, and he was kind of I don't know if you call him an illusionist, but he had this one thing, where he made a plane disappear before everybody's very eyes on television. And, he could, transmit something to your mind, and, you would know what he was communicating to you, all kinds of different things. I don't know if he was an illusionist or if he, had some sort of extra ability, but he was very popular, and he's still around. And, amazingly, he doesn't look that different. So I think he's got something going on. But anyway, I read this article where he was talking. He was good friends with John Lennon, and which is interesting because John was into all kinds of interesting stuff. They went to India to meditate. Right. He was good friends with Uri Geller, who was certainly sort of like a mystical guy at that time. And in this article, Uri talked about John Lennon's UFO incident, and he said that. This is why I wanted to get hold of May Pang, because I want to find out. Because he said that they actually communicated with beings who actually got off the craft.
Wow!
And the beings gave to John this golden egg sort of artifact, which John then ended up giving to Yuri, and who still has it. And so I'm dying to know what that golden egg is. And I wanted to ask May Pang, is that what really happened?
Right.
It's really pulling my leg here. Anyway, I did contact him, and he wouldn't give up much on that particular call, but he told me to call him back again. And he's a good friend of my old business partner when I had my production company.
Uh-huh.
So I had his phone number,
Right.
and so I was able to reach him. So I'm going to get to the heart of that at some point and find out, because
now I'm intrigued.
I know, in my recollection of the original story, they saw this UFO. It was like a very profound experience, but I didn't hear anything about any, beings getting off the craft and communicating with them, or about this golden gift that they left to John, which he later passed on to Uri. So I just pretty wild.
That is wild. You have to keep me posted on how this pans out.
Yeah. I'm definitely got to get back into looking at that. And but there's been so many. I know. And again, it was on Strange Universe. We interviewed Jamie Foxx. What we would do is we would, send a correspondent down to all the red carpet events, and, hijack celebrities and ask them, have you ever had a paranormal experience, or have you ever seen a UFO, or have you ever seen a ghost, or,
right.
Just to get a little comment. And we talked to Jamie Foxx one time on the red carpet, and he gave us quite a little scoop. He told us about, he's a musician also.
Right.
And he was playing with some guys that used to play with Marvin, a guy by the name of Harvey Fuqua, who I think has since passed away himself.
Right.
But Marvin and he were in an old group called the Moonglows way back, in the 60s. And then, Marvin then of course went out on his own and became, the huge star that he was when he left us, and still is. But anyhow, Jamie said that, actually, Marvin used to stay there a lot with Harvey. Marvin lived with his parents in a house that he bought for them. And sometimes he would go over and stay. I think it was in Westwood. I'm not sure. Anyway, it was an apartment, and he would stay there sometimes, and they would play music there. And after he died, then they still, would practice over there and, and just jam. Right. And Jamie Foxx was one, that would go and jam with them. And he said they were just playing away one time, after he started going over there. And he said all of a sudden the door just flew open.
Wow.
And he said, what the hell? And they said, oh, don't worry. It's just Marvin. It's just Marvin. He does it all the time. And so we interviewed a couple of his other friends, and they corroborated that.
Wow.
When they would start playing music, then, the door would fly open, and they just felt that it was Marvin.
That's amazing. I love that. I didn't know Marvin was in a group before, but I love that picture that Bill put up. That's such a great picture of young Marvin. Yeah. And then the other picture, I think, is part of the Let's Get It On album cover sessions.
Certainly the red stocking cap,
Yeah.
the proverbial cap.
What an amazing guy, and what a tragic end to a beautiful life.
And it's very wild.
It's so sad that tragedy follows around some of the greatest musicians. It's people like John Lennon and people like Marvin Gaye. Yeah. The two stories you mentioned back to back were both people whose life ended unfairly and tragically, and it's
Yeah.
and in the same way, uh, and it's like, oh, you miss these people that you never knew. That's the one thing about music that I love, is it's the ultimate travel companion, and it's the ultimate best friend, and it's people that
Yeah.
seem like you've known them. Like I always never wanted to meet Bruce Springsteen. I used to say I never want to meet Bruce because I can't. I
You
not that I
don't want
thought
to
he was.
ruin your image,
It's
or
the illusion, and it's not that
yeah,
I thought he was going to be a jerk. It's that I didn't want him to be a regular person,
right.
because I was like, I see him as almost this like deity of this like person who just like floats across the universe and is just better than everybody and all of this stuff. And I ended up, Bruce invited a friend of mine and me backstage at his Broadway show. I did one of his songs on The Voice, and he invited us backstage when we saw him on Broadway. And he was a regular person, and it didn't ruin it. It was actually even cooler. But everyone was like, "Were you nervous?" And I was like, "No, no, actually, no," because it felt like I had known him my whole life. Because he's written every song that he's written has served a purpose in my life at a different time.
Wow.
Um, and when I think about someone like Marvin, just like it's my mom's favorite, and I got Dad from Bruce, and I got Marvin from my mom, and it's just like I have all these associations with Marvin's music, and it's like I feel like I grew up to Marvin, and so you
Yeah.
feel these losses in a
Yeah.
profound way.
You
It's
do.
really profound.
And the loss of, what could have been to come, but
Right.
people like Prince and other people that, gosh, they had so much more in them, to give, and it's a loss. It's a real loss. But I did get a chance to get to know Marvin, because my best girlfriend at the time married his wife's brother,
Wow.
and so I got to be around the whole family quite a bit.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
yeah, he had a studio down on Sunset, and we used to go down there a lot. And I actually wrote some music with his brother Frankie, who's
Uh-huh.
also passed away. But Frankie
Wow.
and Marvin used to be a duo.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and then Frankie went to Vietnam, and Marvin hit while he was gone.
Right.
And then
That's amazing.
Frankie was just always kind of in his shadow, but sounded just like him, and looked a whole lot like him. It was kind of spooky. But yeah, there's been a lot of people, in the industry. I used to spend more time around the music industry. I used to write a little, and my boyfriend was an artist, performing artist, and so I was kind of around that milieu a lot. So I met a lot of people that shared some experiences, and um, one of those, and I've never told this publicly because just out of respect, but he's passed away now, so I think I could share it. But uh, I knew very well, and for a number of years up until he died, Maurice White, who was the
Yeah.
leader of Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Right.
And he told me some things that happened to him. One of the things was he was they were up recording up at Caribou Ranch. I don't know if you're familiar with Caribou Ranch. It
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
I forgot what rock stars owned it, but they did. But other groups would go out there, and they had a whole compound of studio and houses and things. So they would just go and get away from the world and just record an album.
Right.
So that's what they were doing. Earth, Wind, and Fire was at Caribou. And he said that he woke up in the middle of the night, and there was this really tall white being standing at the foot of his bed with its arms, up and outstretched. And he said it scared him to death. And he
Wow.
kept like saying, "Get out of here," and he finally said, "I'm going to throw my shoe at you." And he picked up his shoe off the floor and threw it. It went right through it, of course.
Wow.
But he said when he did that, it just kind of swoosh and went out the door. And
Wow.
then from for the rest of the time, they could not have the lights out. He would not allow the lights to be turned out at night because it scared him. But much later, he said, "I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I had, waited to see what that was
Right.
and what it wanted from me." But the really more interesting story that he told me, it wasn't just one time. We had a lot of conversations about these people. He called them space brothers, and he said these people came to to visit him. And he said there were these two people, and he said they were very vibrant looking, young, just very attractive and
Hmm.
vibrant. And they came to him and they told him that, they were from another planet. I don't remember now. It's been so many years ago. And that, they came to visit him. And I said, "Well, how do you know?" He said, "Because they proved it to me." And I said, "How?" And he said, "Because I saw them turn something into gold right in front of my eyes."
Wow.
And he had this little pendant that he always wore. It was gold, and it was a gold triangle. But in the middle of the triangle was this stone that was like a violet or a fuchsia color. I've never seen a stone like that. But he
Uh-huh.
said they gave that to him,
Wow.
and he always wore it. And I have to tell you, for one thing, Maurice was a very ascetic person. He didn't drink, he didn't smoke, didn't ever do drugs, or anything like that. Very spiritual person. And if you really look back into their library, their catalog of music, it's really all about, positive and spirituality. Very few like love songs or anything like that.
Right.
He was really on a more, and, it was his sort of um, ball game because he was the leader of the group and it was not a
Hmm.
democracy. He decided everything.
Right.
And in fact, the name Earth, Wind, and Fire came from his sign, which those are the elements that he has in his astrological chart.
Okay.
Uh, he has no water in his chart, so that's how the name Earth, Wind, and Fire came along. But yeah, he told me those stories, and we talked about them at length many times, and I totally believe him. You know, I'm not saying I believe that these people were from outer space, but I know he was telling me the truth as he knew it, as he understood it.
Right.
Uh, and I've got no other explanation for it.
For sure. I've had these conversations before about people just that like you my big thing recently has just been I've talked a lot about just like I watched a documentary called Sasquatch on Hulu. That's a great documentary. And Bob Gimlin is in it, and I just got to talk. I got to talking about just a Patterson Gimlin footage and how just like
I think
worst
it's
case.
real. I'm sorry.
I think it's real, but worst case scenario, it's fake. Wow,
Yeah,
what a way to fundamentally change the fabric of American iconography. A
exactly.
contribution. Like that's worst case. And like most logical case, no one's ever been able to disprove it. It's real, And so I was just talking someone, that didn't uh agree with me. Was just like, like I still watch that Sasquatch documentary, and all these people that they interview just seem so outwardly credible. And I'm like, yes, because they are. And then you like regardless of um, whether or not they've gone out and experienced a Sasquatch or they've gone out and experienced whatever. I believe that they believe that they did and that they had this experience, and that there's no way you can invalidate that and have that be fair to anybody, because it's all about our own experiences as people. And like, I've seen things go fly off shelves in the middle of a toy store, and people could not believe me, but they can't say that I didn't have the experience, because I did. And I fully believe that I saw what I saw. And if they don't, then worst case scenario, they don't believe me, but they can't say that I didn't experience what I experienced. They can just say that, oh, maybe what you experienced was caused by this instead of that you believe is. But fundamentally, we experience things. We all do. And there's no way you can take that away from people, whether you are fully in with them or not. I've just been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. It's just like credibility and people saying, I've experienced this. And I'm like, I believe you, regardless of whatever, whatever the facts are, or whatever happened to you in your head. I believe that you experienced what you say that you've experienced. And so I have no problem being like, yeah, Maurice White met some space brothers.
I believed him.
I believed him.
Yeah, I did. And, I didn't tell that story for, decades. Because I wanted to keep his privacy. And I think he told me not to, but, he'll have to come after me now. Anyway, it's time for us to take a break. And when we get back, more with Britton. Stay with us and we'll be right back.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
Welcome to the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. Here you'll find great new content, including the KGRA Classics, great shows from our archives. You'll be able to see the show times and information so you can see what show is currently on air. The on-air live button. So just go to this section and you'll be able to hear the show live with exceptional sound quality. We also have the Vault section. Make sure to subscribe to get access to great content and special features. We have the make content for our latest news and events, so make sure to sign up and you can be part of our forum. So make sure to check out the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. We look forward to seeing you there, and we hope that you enjoy the new website.
Welcome back to Night Vision. I am your host, Renee Barnett. Tonight, we have the wonderfully talented musician, singer, artist, Britton Buchanan. You may remember him from The Voice, or you may have seen him in some of his music videos or at some other venues. But he's amazing, and we are talking about the crossover between artistry and musicianship and the paranormal. And I don't know how we got onto Bigfoot, but I did want to say one more thing about that. I totally, I mean, back to the Patterson video. I'm sorry. The musculature, I just don't see how they could have faked that. And the movement.
I'm with you.
Okay.
Completely.
All
I'm
right.
completely
Okay.
with you.
I'm preaching to the choir.
I adore Bob Gimlin. And
he still says that it was real.
Yeah. And there's somebody that came out, Bob Hieronymus came out and said it was I in a suit, and he did pass a lie detector test. But Roger Patterson also passed a lie detector test back in the day. And so, will we ever know for sure? Probably not. But I think I 100% believe in it, and I just think that. I mean, there's a great story that people approached the man who did the monkey suits for Planet of the Apes, which came out the next year. And they were like, we heard a rumor that you might have created a monkey suit for this footage. And he was like, look, I'm good, but I'm not that good. That's what he said. That's a quote from the guy who won an Academy Award for best makeup, and that's. I mean, I think that's proof enough. But just like I was saying, the iconography of this footage, because regional tales of Bigfoot or something like it, but mainstream America wasn't aware of this thing. And then we got this visual, which has remained the visual in animations and cartoons and graphics and everything for forever. That's our idea of Bigfoot and Sasquatch, is this footage. And, besides the Zapruder film, arguably the most famous and influential piece of 16 millimeter film ever, is the Patterson Gimlin footage. So I'm just obsessed with how it's just a cultural event. I'm so tied to just things, whether it be the Zapruder film or the Patterson Gimlin footage or the O.J. Simpson trial, whatever it is that just became these cultural events. These and iconic, why.
Yeah.
So that's outside of the fact that I think that this real footage is just something I'm fascinated with.
Well, that could have colored my my perceptions later, because I did feel that was real. And then later on, I was approached by a guy from Texas, way up in the corner of Texas, where Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana kind of all meet up there. And he called me, and I was the research director at that time for Strange Universe, so that anyone that had any kind of story or footage or anything would go through me, and I would decide whether or not, we should pursue it. And anyway, he called me one day and he says, I've got this video and I just want to send it to you. He said, I don't want anything for it. He said, I just want to send it to you. I want to get rid of it because I'm tired of people bugging me about it. And I said, well, what is it? And he told me that he was out at a property, and he had his video camera with him because it was a property that was for sale, a rural property. And he was going to videotape some of it to send to his friend who was going to buy it in partnership, so that he would have some footage, so he could see what it looked like. And he said he came upon this Bigfoot, and he was lying down on his back in the sun, but propped up on his elbows, like you might do. And he said, as soon as he became aware of this guy, the Bigfoot jumped up and ran right for him.
Wow.
And put out his arm and just clotheslined the guy, and knocked out his tooth. And anyway, and then, people started laughing at him when he was telling people about it and bugging him, wanting to see it. And he said he had weird people showing up at his door and things like that. And I said, well, send it on. He sent it, and it looked, for all the world like a Bigfoot, strolling, through the woods.
Wow.
He got it as, it left and was,
Right.
getting away from him. He picked up his camera and got some footage. And we aired it on Strange Universe. And I told him, I said, you really should let me give you something for this, and so he says, well, I would like to get my tooth fixed. And so I sent him a check for $500 for that video. Well, later, when I had my own company, we did a documentary on Bigfoot called Bigfootville.
Uh-huh.
And it showed on the Travel Channel for like 12 years. And I think it's still circulating here somewhere. But anyway, it was down there in that region, close to where I grew up, really. And we wanted some real Bigfoot footage to use, to illustrate. And so I said, I know where there's some. And, of course, by that time, I think the show was owned at that time by United Television and Reicher Entertainment. They sold out, and Paramount bought all their library and everything. Mm-hmm. Well, I still had the records of the tape numbers and what was on everything. So I contacted Paramount about using a few seconds of that video in my documentary, and they wanted to charge me $15,000 for 3 seconds. I said,
wow. How
can you do that? You wouldn't even know you had it. They didn't even know it was there.
Right.
I said, you've got it in your library. Here's the number, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I had my business partner who's British and meaner than me. Not anymore, but I'm meaner than him now. But in those days, I was nicer, and so I had him call them up, and he got them. I think we ended up paying just $1,500 for using like 3 or 4 seconds of the footage. But I thought, how cheeky of them! They wouldn't have it. Number one, if it wasn't for me. Number two, they wouldn't know they had it if it wasn't for me. So
that's insane.
Yeah, but anyway. If you get a chance to see that, I'd love to get your opinion on that footage. A few weeks ago, we had a friend who's a great paranormal investigator and a Bigfoot expert named Ken DaCosta on. And he took a look. He already knew about the footage in Bigfootville, but he pulled it up while we were actually on the show, and he felt like it was real.
Wow. Well, now I have to see it. But this is a perfect segue because we're talking about creativity and where it's, like songs come from and everything. I have a Bigfoot song.
Oh my God.
So
can you do it?
I've never played it for anybody. Let me get my guitar.
Oh my God.
I always play things I've never played for anybody when I go on people's shows.
I know. Well, at least I didn't make you play Skylark.
I would not have remembered how to play it. But I had watched this Sasquatch thing, and I wanted to write a song about Bigfoot. And so I wrote this. The summer of our senior year, the summer of conspiracies, believe in everything we ever read. That summer now is not quite clear. We have responsibilities in between the distance and this bed. Young and dumb, we both made fun of all conventionalities. We pushed right up against the status quo. It was you, me, aliens, Bigfoot and chemtrails. Mothman in movies we were too high to watch. We still make fun of our parents even though it's quite apparent that we always turn into the things we always swear we want. Yeah, we always turn into the things we always swear we want. You wore fake leather boots and I wore fake leather jackets. We wore t-shirts of bands we never heard. We both didn't have a clue, and we know now that the fact is belief without the sight remains preferred. I fell in love with auburn hair and the way you seemed you didn't care. The way that you could cut me right in two. It was you, me, alien, Bigfoot and chemtrail. Mothman in movies we were too high to watch. We still make fun of our parents even though it's quite apparent that we always turn into the things we always swear we want. Yes, we always turn into the things we always swear we want. And I guess that we get older, and I guess it comes undone. And I guess the feeling of falling in love feels like staring into the sun. Well, I guess the feeling of falling in love feels like staring into the sun. 'Cause it was you, me, aliens, Bigfoot and chemtrail, Mothman and movies we were too high to watch. And we still make fun of our parents even though it's quite apparent that we always turn into the things we always swear we want. Yeah, we always turn into the things we always swear we want. That's my Bigfoot song.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for listening.
We got a performance live right here on Night Vision. That is so wonderful. When did you write that?
Oh, about a month ago, probably.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's fairly new. But I had watched the Sasquatch thing, and then I just got to just thinking about,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
the kind, like we were talking about people with experiences, and I was like, I want to write a song about people with experiences, and
Yeah.
like it's you know, I like, you know, saying things in a way that, like, you know, things that have been said before in ways that haven't been said. So, like, you know, I have a song about one of my favorite movies is The Creature from the Black Lagoon, and so just the scene of the creature underneath Julie Adams just swimming and like coming up and going to touch her, and then he pulls away, and I just was like, oh, this is like Beauty and the Beast. And when everybody's written songs about Beauty and the Beast, I can't believe you're into me, you're so beautiful, I'm so not as Beauty and the Beast. And I was like, well, saying Julie Adams and the creature is a much more interesting way of saying Beauty and the Beast. And so I was like, oh, I want to write a song about, you know, people that believe in these fantastical, amazing things when they're really young and in high school and in love, and then they fell out of it when they get older. And what's an interesting way to say, oh, I wish that we were, you know, playing, you know, these games with each other like we did it when we were a child. I wish we were still playing hide and seek. I wish we were blah 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 blah. Take me back was an interesting way that's never been said. Oh, we used to get high and watch movies and talk about how much we believed in Bigfoot and Mothman and aliens and everything, and now we're just boring people. And so that's where that came from, was like, oh, what's an interesting way to say we've grown up?
Yeah.
Well, And so that's why I wrote it. But I really like it.
Oh, I do too. That's really good. You've written some other kind of, well, the October's Queen, has a definite, monster element
Yeah, yeah,
to it because you got all the monster stars.
yeah. That's just about me. I mean, we thought it was way more interesting to do it in a feminine way of like, the only person that can beat the monster in horror movies was, the female lead. All the men died. All the strong jocks got killed first, and the girl next door was what was left at the end of the movie to, kick butt and take names, and she always did. And so, me as a kid into music and theater and everything, I came from a football town and a baseball town, and so I wasn't necessarily in the norm. So I felt like on the outside of everything. So I identified with these, female leads. And so I just wanted to write a song about growing up and watching scary movies. And I was like, oh, well, we could like write about this young girl that just sits and watches horror movies and like acts like, she's the one in the screen and that she's the badass and she's the one that's just like killing it every day because that's the world that she wants to live in. She wants, and you emulate these things in pop culture, and that's what I always like to do. And so, yeah, I don't know what it is, but like, I mean, everything's been said 1,000 times, but it hasn't been said in every way possible. And so, there's so many outcast loser songs that we could have said it any other way. But I was like, well, I like scary movies. Let's write a song about scary movies.
Yeah.
So,
and then you got all those stars of the horror films.
Yeah, Linda's not in it. What the heck? Well, Linda,
yeah,
Linda's very busy, and this was in the middle of like the shelters had just shut down again, and so which means that they were going to close all the doors and kill what was left inside. And so Linda was just like, give me all your dogs, like in the Bible when Jesus says, suffer all the little children to come unto me.
Little children to come unto me.
That's what Linda did with all the dogs. And so like I was just like, I'm not gonna bother her, I'm just gonna let her do her thing.
Oh my gosh. How many dogs does she have now?
Oh God. And it's there's a lot. I haven't been up there in about a month and a half. So I don't know the exact number right now, but it's a lot. But she's constantly doing adoptions, constantly, several times, and it's been great. The one thing that COVID did was like make people want pets, and people want accompaniment in that way. And and all the shelters closed. So Linda was able to operate because she's not a shelter. Linda was able to still do her thing, and people were safely. With COVID restrictions, adopting dogs, and she adopted out a ton of them, and it was great to see. And she's like, it's so funny because she feels like my little sister, even though I'm a 21-year-old and she's 62, but she feels like my little sister in the sense of I'm just like. I have such adoration for her and such a protectiveness over her and her operation that I'm just like, I hate to hear like her talk about like the way that the press treated her back in the day. I'm like, I want to find these people. I want to make them pay. And I just adore her. But yeah, we had 24 horror icons, or whatever else. I don't know what else you would call them, but horror icons to me. In this music video, which was so cool because that's my Blu-ray bookcase, and like I've had movies of every single one of them that I've had since I was a kid, and so that's what I've loved. I'm very blessed that happened. Luckily, I timed it with a global pandemic where everybody was stuck at home, so people had time to be in my music video.
Some things did actually work out, during isolation and quarantine.
It was like, you feel so selfish saying that, but it's so true. Like it was a blessing for me as much as it was a curse. And I say that with like a weird, instinctual flinch, because I've had people close to me that got really sick. I've had people close to me that passed away.
Yeah, me too.
And I know people that just, brutalized their family, and just like, and then ideologically, it was really tough to just like, see the discourse get so rotten amongst humanity. And like, it was tough to see, but I have friends that, now I have to change that word from have to had, because I was just like, oh, this isn't like who I thought you were. I thought that you were going to treat humans better than this. And so as much as I want to be like, it sucked to see people get the discourse get so tainted, it's like, well, I have people that I don't really care that much to speak to again because of the way that they behaved themselves. And so it was a curse, but at the same time, I was able to do that music video. I was able to spend time just writing all of the time. I was able to record more than ever. I was able to take more time with music than ever. I quarantined with two of my best friends for like 2 months, and we became closer than ever and just like family. And it was just like, there was so many great things that were happening. And at the same time, there was just utter chaos around us. But I think that you do find calm in the storm. So it had its blessings and it had its curse. And, it always feels weird to say, oh, yeah, there was blessings in COVID, because I know there were some people that lost everything, their business or their parents or their friend or their cousin or brother or sister and niece, nephew, child. It
was a horror. The disease itself was a horror. But the quarantine, I think, kind of caused us all to try to come up with different ways of doing things, become more creative in that way. I mean, that's actually how the, those streaming shows that I did with the Dark Zone, that's how that came about. The first one we did was the Conjuring House. And, when they called me and said, we're thinking this, I said, you guys are crazy. And they said, I know, but we're crazy too. So that's why we're calling you. So we just did it. It was crazy. But we figured out different ways of doing things than we had ever done. Because we said, first of all, we're bored. Second of all, we need some work. And third of all, we'd like to entertain some people. We'd like to offer something up during this pandemic that people can do. So there, a lot of creativity came out of that. But yeah, I agree. We paid far too heavy a price for that.
But it seems like a reset. At least I want to believe that it seems like a reset. It seems like a time where, like, when I get to go out to eat now inside of a restaurant, I'm like all giddy. I'm like,
oh yeah.
To tip, 40%. You just got the right table tonight. And like when concerts come back, I'm sure that it's going to be amazing. And when movie theaters came back, it was just like, I cannot believe I'm in the middle of a movie theater. I tell everybody, like, the second I got my second vaccination, I felt like I could go lay out in the middle of the 101 and just get run over and then stand up and be like, I still feel great. Yeah.
I know. I was amazed at how freeing that was when I got my vaccine, especially when I got the second, dose.
Yeah.
I did feel kind of invincible and like, okay, I'm not afraid,
For sure. Yeah. You feel like you could lick the floor. Like, it's really odd. It's really odd. I got that feeling like right when I got the first one, because I was, I went to Georgia 2 weeks later, and I went and I sang for President Jimmy Carter at his church. And I'm a huge political nerd, and uh, I have always identified as, regardless of the fact that I'm from North Carolina, my whole family are conservatives, as a progressive liberal and a very spiritual one at that. And that's what Jimmy Carter is to me. And like at least 30 of these books on this bookshelf, 20 of them are written by Jimmy Carter, and the other ones are about Jimmy Carter. So I love Jimmy Carter. And speaking about music, I mean, he was the first president to hitch his wagon to music. It was the
yes,
Allman
he
Brothers,
was.
and it was Marshall Tucker, and it was Charlie. That's how he funded his campaign, was benefit concerts from these rock stars. And so I was like, I want to sing for this guy, the rock and roll president. I want to sing for this guy. And I did, actually, I'll show you. I haven't had the chance to frame this yet. These two are me and the Carters, but I haven't had the chance to frame this one. But there's me and Jimmy and Rosalind Carter. I went to their church. I was with them for about 2.5 hours, and it was the most amazing experience of my entire life. I will never forget it.
He just seems like the sweetest man,
He's so kind. He's the kindest guy. And he's like that.
I love his work, A Habitat for Humanity.
97 in October. He's still building these houses. There's two people, Renee, that I've gotten starstruck in front of. One of them was Jimmy Carter. You don't know how to talk to a president, especially me, a political junkie. These are all musician biographies, books about film, some Stephen King books, and then political presidential biographies. That's all. I read mainly nonfiction. So to meet Jimmy Carter, who is my hero, I got starstruck. It's the leader of the free world. And then yesterday, get this. This is insane. This is a little off topic, but I ramble. But so for the last 2.5 weeks, I've just been talking about, I watched a documentary called OJ Made in America that's about the OJ Simpson trial. It's all about race in Los Angeles and policing in Los Angeles. I started talking about this just watching this OJ thing. Then I bought The Run of His Life, The People versus O.J. Simpson, a book that's like the book to read about O.J. And that trial. And I rewatched the Ryan Murphy FX miniseries. I've only talked about O.J. for 2.5 weeks. I live a block from a Vons. I ran out of hairspray. You got to have hairspray to keep this up.
Oh, yeah.
So I was going across the street to get hairspray, and I'm getting ready to walk into the grocery store. And I kid you not, walking out of the grocery store, just taking his mask off, was Kato Kaelin.
Oh, my God.
After I've spent the last 2.5 weeks literally only talking about O.J. Simpson and his trial. And all of a sudden, there's Kato Kaelin. And I froze. With the voice, I was around celebrities all the time, and I was like pretty used to just like, oh, they're normal people.
Yeah.
You're just around them. And I completely froze. I was like, oh my God, that's Kato Kaelin. I felt like I set my book down about the trial to walk over to the grocery store, and there he was.
That's kind of paranormal-y.
Yes. Kato is very paranormal. He's not, he's very supernatural. He's not,
yeah.
Maybe he's preternatural.
I remember him from the trial. He was kind of a character.
Yes.
But I'd love to talk to him.
Yes, Kato. Well, I had messaged him on Instagram, and he had messaged me back before because he was in a friend of mine's movie, and we laughed about it. And I said, "Oh, I hope to see you around town sometime." Thumbs up. And little did I know, 2 weeks later, that we would literally run into each other coming and going out of our local grocery store. I didn't know he lived around here.
That's so strange.
Kato Kaelin. I manifested Kato Kaelin's existence in Vons. It was pretty amazing.
That is so well. I've got an entire library of books about the O.J. Simpson murders.
Yeah?
Yeah. I don't have the one you're talking about, but I haven't seen that last thing that you mentioned.
The miniseries. You should watch it.
I did not see it.
It's Ryan Murphy produced it. Cuba Gooding Jr. is OJ. John Travolta is Robert Shapiro. David Schwimmer is Robert Kardashian. Sterling K. Brown is Chris Darden, Sarah Paulson, Marsha Clark, Courtney B. Vance as Johnny Cochran.
Poor
It's
Chris
amazing.
Darden. Yeah.
Chris Darden. I'm constantly amazed at how absolutely bungled the prosecution had this case and the police, and it's just like
sad, yeah.
it was just like, are you serious? Like, you couldn't have done a better job. It's funny we're talking about this because tomorrow, I guess, is 27 years since the murders. June 12th, 1994.
Oh, was it
27 years ago
I remember
tomorrow.
that it was in June.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I remember it like it was yesterday. You know, it was here in Los Angeles, and it was just all over the place, and the big, Bronco slow chase.
Yeah,
it went on
that low-speed Bronco chase.
Yeah, it went on for hours and hours and hours. Oh, it was just unbelievable. I remember one of my friends was on the freeway, and you remember how people were stopped along the freeway and standing up on their cars. She was one of those. I said, why did you do that?
Oh, she saw the Bronco chase in person.
Yep.
That's amazing.
It went right by her.
I was talking about OJ to somebody the other day. I was like, you really should watch this miniseries. I turned as I'm like walking with my earbuds in on my phone, and I turned to my right, and there was a Bronco parked on the street. And I was like, oh. And so I was like, I don't need to take a right. I need to take a left. So I turned left, and there was another Bronco parked on the street. I was in between dual Broncos talking about this OJ thing. Which I have started to write a song about. I wanted to talk about cultural events, just the failing of a relationship, and pitting it against the OJ trial, because it lasted for 11 months. And so of just I was like, I want to write a song where you fall in love at the beginning of this trial, and then by the end of it, the relationship is falling apart. So I've started this song called Fall of 95 that just talks about OJ. So the inspiration comes from everywhere in terms of the creative process.
And speaking of sort of a paranormal, or I don't know what kind of aspect it would be of that situation, but after the murders, I started having dreams about Nicole Brown Simpson. And I mean, they were so vivid that I really thought I was with her. And I remember one time, we were down at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, and I saw him coming, and I was frantically trying to find her to warn her, and I finally, rushed up and got her, and she goes, it's okay. I'm already dead.
Wow.
What a weird dream. But I had repeated dreams where she would give me messages. She would give me a gift in the dream.
Wow.
And I don't know why that was. It was the weirdest thing, but it was scary because, it was about murder and, and all that. And in the dream, he was so scary. I mean, I know that he was acquitted, but, he did it. I'm sorry.
It's one of those things.
And the Patterson video is real.
Right.
That's all I'm going to say.
But if you haven't read, he's canceled. So, but Jeffrey Toobin is the one that wrote this book, and Jeffrey Toobin.
Jeffrey
was
Toobin
in the courtroom.
Has taken a little sabbatical after his little Zoom call incident.
Exactly. and so he is canceled, but he did write this book before.
So I was glad when you stood up.
Escapades.
When you stood up before, I was glad to see that you were wearing pants.
Oh, yes. No, I only read Jeffrey Toobin. I don't do as he does. I just read his books. But he is amazing. He was the first person that got an interview with Robert Shapiro, and just clearly lays out in this book that Robert Shapiro and Johnny Cochran on several occasions told people privately that they thought OJ did it. Yeah. But those people were making $50,000 a day, Like
Yeah.
I think Shapiro had a $1.2 million contract with O.J. Simpson. So I don't know, if you gave me $1.2 million, you could probably convince me you were innocent as well. And it was publicity. It's like, you're going to get hired to do all of these other things. Like, and so they just pretended. But according to this book, almost everybody on the defense thought OJ was guilty, except OJ. I don't know if OJ thinks he did it. Like
I
OJ
think
seems
he's
so
convinced himself. Yeah.
I think he's convinced himself that he didn't do anything. And so I mean, I don't know. I've
But
always
if you remember, if you saw the moment, which is constantly played over and over again, that they, say, Orenthal, James Simpson, not guilty. If you see Robert Kardashian's face, he looks completely stricken. He doesn't look happy. He looks devastated. He looks like he's in shock. And what I think is that he knew, or at least strongly suspected, that OJ had done it.
right.
But yet he was his friend, and he stood by him. And of course, everyone deserves a defense and blah, blah, blah.
It sounds
But
like
I
a lot
think-
of his friends didn't care, that they were just like, it's the juice.
I guess, yeah.
He's got money. He's powerful. He's popular. Like, maybe he did it. There's a moment in this documentary, OJ Made in America, which, if you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend. I think it won an Academy Award for Best Documentary. It's 8 hours. It's 8 hours long, and it's bigger than OJ. It's about just. It goes back to the Watts riots. It goes back to Latasha Harlins. It goes back to Rodney King. It goes back to the drug raids in LA. I can't remember what street, but there was supposed to be a small drug raid, and then the LAPD came in with 80 officers, and they had to pay. They found a couple of grams of crack and a little bit of marijuana, and they had just destroyed these people's apartments. It goes back to Leonard Deadweiler. It goes back to all of these things, and about just how Black people's rightful distrust of the Los Angeles Police Department in these times was a big factor of this case. And in the documentary, his agent, who OJ had a falling out with after they were going to seize all of his stuff when he lost the civil case.
Yeah.
And his agent hid stuff for OJ, and then OJ said that he stole it. So they did have a big falling out. But his agent says that OJ, when OJ was sold Rockingham and had to move, that they were sitting on the back porch just reminiscing, and the agent said, Juice, what happened on June 12th? And OJ was like, well, what do you think happened? And the agent said, well, I mean, I guess I've always thought you probably did it. And he was like, OJ looked at me and said, yeah, if she hadn't have opened the door with a knife, she'd still be alive today, is what OJ told this guy, is what he claims OJ has told this guy. But I thought the most stark revelation, less than OJ saying, yeah, I did it, was the guy saying, well, I always thought you probably did it. And he was still his agent and still his friend and still all of these things. And I think that that's the indictment of celebrity.
Yeah.
Of you can get away with whatever you want to get away with, and people are still going to be your friends because they like the proximity to fame and they like the proximity to power. And so the OJ thing is just, just captivated my existence. And then Kato Kalin walks out the door, and I'm
That's
just like,
so funny.
oh no, it's Kato. I'm like, you want to go to McDonald's?
Yeah.
Oh,
Did they go to McDonald's or did they go to Burger King that night?
I think it was McDonald's.
Was it
They went to
McDonald's?
McDonald's at 9:40, and then they went home, and then OJ disappeared. And then he was like, can you help me bring my bags down to the truck? I'm like, yeah, you're probably the first human interaction after these crimes that OJ allegedly committed. Then that would have been the first human that he went and spoke with. And now he's in front of me in Vaughn's. And so that's why I was like, I'm a little starstruck here with Kato Kalin.
Oh, that's just so weird. So he's basically saying that she answered the door with a knife in her hand.
That's what
And he
the
took it from
agent
her?
says. I think that's what the agent is his agent former agent is claiming in the documentary that
I
OJ
kind of
told
doubt
her.
if she did answer with the knife. He probably took the knife.
Well, what the agent says is he was like, I believed him for a second, and then I realized that, like, oh no, you went over there with the intention of doing these things, is what the agent says in this documentary.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting now, 27 years later, to see. I mean, public perception was really flipped about this thing. Like, it was really like, I think it was like 60% of whites thought OJ did it, and a very small percentage of the black population thought
Yeah.
OJ did it. And now it's up to like 85% of white people think OJ did it, and 60% of the black population believes OJ did it. And so
Yeah.
it's interesting over time. Also, in this documentary, they interview some jurors, and one of the jurors goes on record and says that not only did she vote to acquit, as her words, payback for the
Right.
acquittal of the officers that beat Rodney King, but she believes that 90% of the jury also voted to convict, solely based on payback for
Right.
what happened with the Rodney King trial, disregarding any evidence.
Yeah.
And that 90% of the jury, including her, voted that way. And she went on record and said it.
Yeah.
So
Jury
it's really just
nullification, they called it
Yeah.
back then. And yeah, I mean, I can see that. I can see that happening. And then I can also see, people maybe they did think that he wasn't guilty and then changing their minds over time.
I think it's hard to refute how much DNA evidence. I mean, DNA was relatively new at the time. Still, and there was a lot people didn't understand. And so I think as time goes by and we've learned more about DNA, just to examine how much DNA evidence is involved in that case and how nearly impossible it would be to plant a lot of this stuff.
Right.
Has changed a lot of people's. That's what changed Robert Kardashian's mind. Robert Kardashian went on record and was like, I have my doubts, and it's because of all the DNA evidence. I mean, there's like I think that it's the socks in OJ's house that had blood on them.
I was just thinking that.
They tested, and it was Nicole's blood on the socks, and it was a 1 in 6.8 billion chance that it was not Nicole. And at the time, there was only 5 billion people on the planet, so a statistical impossibility that it wasn't Nicole. And I think that the longer time has gone by, the more people have learned about the way those kind of things work. I think people have changed their minds now.
Yeah,
it would be a very different trial if it was held today, I think.
It's really interesting and wonderful how DNA has come into play in solving a lot of cold cases now. Cases that are 50 years old, 20 years old, murder cases that now they're, bringing justice to those victims and their families. It's pretty amazing. And
the other side of that coin is exonerating people who are wrongfully convicted of crimes, which is what Barry Scheck and Peter Newfield, two O.J. Simpson defense lawyers, have done with the Innocence Project. Is they've gotten a lot of people out of jail or off death row or and back at home using DNA evidence that proves that these folks did not commit these crimes. And so that's what's so interesting about DNA technology. But in 1994, when it's kind of new and you're using all these big words and like things that people don't know anything about, you're just like, I don't get this. He didn't do it. And so I think time, as always, we learn a little bit more about the truth and about ourselves and about the way the world works. And so I'm sure that if it were held today, it'd be a different scenario.
It probably would. But I don't know why. I mean, of course, that case really, struck a lot of people, but I don't know why it would cause me to have these dreams. I mean, I dream a lot. I dream, but there are those dreams that are just so real that it really feels like you were really there. You were really in
For
that
sure.
situation. And you just can't shake those the next day. It just like sticks with you. And that's
Right.
how those were. And it went on for a while. And I couldn't figure out why. I'm not a person that.
It's really, that's amazing.
Yeah, I don't get
I
a
think
lot
it's
of.
amazing.
Yeah, I don't get a lot of, like profound psychic messages or anything like that. Like, some people do and have that ability to do. But, I do feel like there's something, going on. We're talking about creativity and how sometimes with music, it's almost like a download. It's almost like,
Right.
It's like I'm the same way with like just about everything. Like with doing research, it's like I feel like when I'm sitting down and getting ready to start researching, that somehow I'm connected to my computer. It's like,
Right.
and it becomes intuitive, when I'm researching. It'll take me, off in different directions, but it's always the right one, and I don't know if that's anything unusual, but I have heard other people say the same thing, like they feel like they're connected to their computers, and some people feel like they're connected to like their cars. And I know
Right.
cars, sometimes if you get a different driver coming in, and it's not great for the car because a different driver, it's like, they know because they're doing things a little differently. So it's interesting to think about the interface between, people and machines.
Yeah.
But also, when you were talking about Linda Blair before, and the dogs, that's another thing. I feel like there's a huge, interconnectedness with humans and animals, with all living beings.
Right.
And I don't know. I remember, growing up, I grew up in, in the South, in the country, and or in a really small town, and people just, people had dogs and pets. We always had dogs, but it was like that people's attitudes were a little bit different.
Right.
Like I remember one time, my parents had this dog that just showed up at their house, and they just started feeding it and everything, and that, which was really nice. And they would feed him every day, but at night they'd make him sleep outside, even though they had a garage and a back porch. And it was snowing and freezing, like we lived in Oklahoma. So it was like super cold in the wintertime. And I would say, Mom, you make that dog sleep outside? And she'd go, he's just a dog. And
Right.
it's like, and I remember, even several years later, I had a dog who died. She had cancer, and I did everything. And I spent so much money trying to save her. And it was just horrible. And she just went downhill in a month's time. And it just broke my heart. And I remember one of my friends saying, it's just a dog. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
I don't understand human callousness towards animals. I don't understand how anybody could ever like hurt a dog or abuse a dog or not like take a dog in and treat it like, like if it were up to me, I'd be giving my dogs like 4-course meals every night with like, I just love animals. And
Yeah.
I do think that there is a spiritual connection to animals. Ever since as a wee lad, I watched All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Oh.
And so, but I completely, I
You're
don't
lucky
understand
you didn't
anybody
grow.
with breast.
You're lucky you didn't grow up at my age. The iconic dog show when I was growing up was Old Yeller. I
Yes,
don't know if you've
which
ever heard of it.
ends devastatingly.
Horrible. I
Yeah.
was traumatized.
Yeah,
The
it's
dog.
awful. It's like Bambi.
Oh.
And you're like, are you serious?
Oh,
You're doing this to children?
Bambi nearly killed me. Oh, it was awful. We cried and
Old
cried, and our
Yeller is,
parents were like going, "Oh my gosh, what are we going to do with these little girls? They're all
Well, my old Yeller, which I watched Old Yeller and cried, but my generation's Old Yeller was Marley and Me, which was
Oh,
also just
yes. Oh, my
devastatingly sad.
God. Yes.
That
Oh,
was the second movie that ever made me cry. The first was Patch Adams. Robin Williams' Patch Adams was the first movie that
yeah.
made me cry. And then Marley and Me just wrecked me. Like a 9-year-old kid, I was like, oh no, the dog
Oh, I
died.
know. Oh, it's awful. It's awful. And
Yeah.
dogs, the animals in general, but I'm such a dog person. I have 3, and they're so loving and excited and happy to see you, and it's just so wonderful to come home. And I mean, I can go out the door to get the mail and come back in, and it's like, oh, she's back. Oh,
Yes.
and they're all like clamoring, and it's like, oh my gosh,
It's
but
amazing.
it's nice
Dogs,
that someone's always happy to see you.
That's great. See, we have a cat here. My dogs are back home. We have a cat here in LA, and it's my roommate's cat. He just got her, and she could not care less when we come and go. She's just like, sassy.
Oh, I
She's just like,
know.
bye. Like, what? And we get home, and she's like, oh, it's you. And so, like, with the cats, I'm like, I always used to make the joke. I was like, cats are for people who don't want to take care of dogs, like who want an animal that they don't have to take care of. Because cats are so self-sufficient and they don't care about you at all. They just want to do their own thing. And so dogs, I always love because I am a musician. That means I am a craver of attention. And so with dogs, that's all you get is attention all the time. That's all they want. They just want to be around
love,
you.
lots of unconditional love. Hey, I didn't realize we had a question in the chat room.
Oh,
Since restrictions are lifting throughout the country, are there any plans to tour yet?
not for a full-fledged tour, but I'm actually playing my first gig in almost 2 years in 8 days, a week from tomorrow, back home in North Carolina. I'm flying home with 3 of my best friends, Kelly and Red, who I mentioned before, had the jewelry shop in South Pass with the Ghost. 2 of my best buddies, and Kelly's guitar player, Jake. We're going to fly home. We're going to play a show in my hometown in a park back home. Is like, I grew up playing in this park. I had Thursday night music nights in the summer, and they would have all the local bands come play on Thursday night. And we had the biggest attendance for one of those events. We had almost 500 people come out. We were awful. It was actually embarrassing. But that was the thing. And I played the park several times. I played it after The Voice. I would sit in with my friends' bands, and we would do some shows there. And then in 2019, they decided to not do shows in the park. They were going to do shows in the street. They were going to close off these streets and do shows. And then no one came out because everybody wanted to just go to the park. And then 2020, you couldn't do anything. And so 2021, after 2 years, they're finally back in Depot Park, which is where all the music usually is. And so I'm kicking off their summer concert series of opening the park back up and having concerts again. So
that's great.
While not a full-fledged tour, we're playing a couple of shows back home next week, and I might join my friends for last year. They did a motel tour where they just drove around, didn't play to audiences. They just live streamed from these different roadside motels, whether they be on Route 66 or whether they be in the middle of a cornfield in Kansas, wherever they were. And so I'll probably join. They're going back out again at the end of July for a month, so I'll likely join them for a couple of days. But not a tour just yet. But hopefully we'll get things going soon.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, you remind me, playing at the park there locally reminds me of Dave Chappelle is holding these
at his farm
comedy concerts in the cornfield
and in Ohio, Yellow Springs, Ohio. He's
so
a
hilarious.
Genius. He's probably the funniest comedian still alive. I'll always say that Robin Williams was the funniest person that ever lived because his brain just worked faster than everybody else's.
Oh boy, yeah.
and George Carlin, who are two of my two favorite comedians. Both passed on. And
I got to see
Dave
George
Chappelle's left.
Carlin in concert in person, which was
Wow.
really nice. It was many years ago, but I laughed so hard through the whole thing. He's just
He's
hilarious.
amazing. He's
Yeah.
amazing. And Dave Chappelle is just the funniest guy that we've got left.
Yeah.
Hopefully someone else will come along. But yeah, kind of like that. We're playing Depot Park in Stamford, North Carolina next Saturday. So we're super excited.
Now,
I'm actually super nervous.
Is there a website or anything where people can follow what you're doing?
Yeah. At BrittonBuchanan.com. Oh, they just threw it up on the bottom here.
All right. BrittonBuchanan.com.
And just Britton Buchanan on all social media, Twitter and Instagram at Britton Buchanan, and on Facebook, just Britton Buchanan. And all of my updates there. We're getting ready to announce another single that we have coming out in a couple of weeks, leading up to a record that we have coming out in September. My first record. Not the first record I've recorded, but the first record that we'll put out. And so that's all my updates, BrittonBuchanan.com, and on all social media as Britton Buchanan.
Wow. Well, we have talked our time away.
This was so fun.
Oh, I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, we got all over the place, didn't we?
That's what we're here for.
We went off on a few tangents, but I certainly enjoyed it. And I hope you'll come back sometime and see us again. And keep us posted on what you're up to. We'll have to watch your website, BrittonBuchanan.com, and find out what you're all about in the future.
Oh, yeah.
And if you have any experiences that you'd like to share, let me know.
Yes. Thanks for having me so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. All right. Well, thank you again so much. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Next week, we're going to be all about remote viewing with Lori Williams, who's going to maybe even do some experiments with the audience. So I'm going to see what I can talk her into. But she's an amazing remote viewer. She's an amazing teacher of remote viewing. And she's also got a lot of psychic abilities, which are just amazing. So we're going to hang out with Lori next week. So hope you all have a great week this week and come back and see us. Take care.